Hey, David Brewster here with another Brewster's Millions of Rants, and this is the power of one note. And the reason I kind of put this together, it's really just a culmination of a lot of things I've seen online and a lot of videos I've seen posted on YouTube and posted on social media. And I'm not picking on anybody. I'm not going to call anybody out or, direct this at somebody, personally. It's just an observation, something I've kind of noticed a lot of people doing. And that is kind of a lack of phrasing. You know what I mean? It seems like I see a lot of videos online of people just shredding the frets off their guitar, which is awesome. I love shred guitar. I just went to see Buckethead last night. So I'm not knocking shred guitar. I've always been interested in shredding, but there's more to music than just playing it fast, right? So for me personally, a song doesn't have to be hard to play for it to be good. Some of the best music ever written or recorded is simple. Look at Bob Dylan or the Beatles or Tom Petty or somebody like that. Simplicity has its place. Like when I hear AC/DC's music, I get kind of filled up with this kind of adrenaline or this AC/DC kind of rage comes over me where it's like, turn that up, and I start driving my car a little faster, or I feel like fighting somebody out in the streets, It's just the feeling that that music gives me. It's very simple, but it's delivering this primal kind of energy that's kind of lacking in a lot of modern music, in my opinion. Um, so, as far as the power of one note and, talking about phrasing and, playing melodically and stuff like that, there's one guitarist, and there's a bunch I could mention, but there's one player that really comes to mind first, and that's David Gilmour, from Pink Floyd. Um, David Gilmour is one of the most respected, electric guitarists of all time, um, with musicians and non-musicians alike. Just casual music fans also, worship Pink Floyd and David Gilmour's voice and his guitar playing and their music. Although someone like David Gilmour really isn't a shred guitarist. I mean, he doesn't play like Steve Vai or Chris Pelletieri or somebody. He's not gonna chase, Jeff Loomis off the stage with a bunch of notes. But what Gilmour does have up his sleeve is a mind, a musical mind, and he also is thinking of phrasing. He's relating this, melodies and licks and phrases that he plays over the chords that he's playing in a very intelligent way. And he's one of those guitarists, I mean, you won't hear a single note that he didn't mean to play, right? And just to reinstate this, I'm really not dogging shred guitar or technical guitar playing or, playing arpeggios and sweeping and tapping and string skipping and all this stuff. I'm not dissing that at all. But there's more to music than just that, right? And I'm really just going to kind of hope that this kind of reaches a few of you and maybe you start thinking a little bit differently, as far as what you're doing when you're not shredding, when you're not blazing the fretboard with something, then what are you doing? Like what kind of melodies or melodic, tendencies do you have in your music? And so the concept behind this is very simple. And we're going to start with a really basic idea, and then I'm going to evolve that into something a little bit more challenging. And then at the end, it's going to turn into something completely different. So here we go. The whole lesson is going to loosely revolve around the key of A minor. So we're going to play with some basic ideas in the key of A minor. So we really need to get that sound and tonality, in your head. And that's one thing you might want to do when you're working on, some licks or some new ideas. Depending on what you've done, on whatever day it is that you're practicing, you need to kind of establish, a tonality or a key. Like let's say you've been at work all day, or you've been driving around in the car all day, or you've been asleep all day or something. Your ear, whether you realize it or not, your ear is catching music throughout the day on TV, on the radio. Maybe it's blasting out of your phone, or you're watching something on YouTube, or whatever. Your neighbor's blasting, like a backyard barbecue party, and you're hearing music. So your ear catches it. Even if you don't really pay attention to what's being played, your ear and your brain are still hearing, that music. So your ear can kind of become, distorted or colored in a different key. And then suddenly you start playing in a key that your head isn't kind of in tune with. And you can have some, some issues at first. Like it seems like you're kind of struggling against whatever key or music or songs are kind of playing in your head. So it's good, to establish a key, especially if you're doing something like this. We're going to be talking about phrasing and note choices and playing melodically. So we definitely want that sound, firmly in your head before we do anything. Just kind of become one with A minor. As far as that's concerned, one thing I do when I'm recording, working on some of my own music, let's say there's a part that I need, like maybe I'm working on a solo, or there's a melody, or a little fill, or a melodic phrase somewhere. If I have trouble coming up with what I want to do, sometimes I'll just play, the backing, or like the raw track, without that part. I'll just let that play, for the afternoon or whatever. I'll let it play for an hour or so and just loop it or repeat it. And I'll listen to it away from my guitar. I'll hum melodies, or I'll think of things, or maybe I'll start, doing something else while that's playing in the background, but I'm still thinking about it, and then sometimes if I hear an idea, or maybe I hum or whistle a melody or something, then I'll grab my guitar and try to find it. So that's really good. Try to kind of wrap yourself in a key, or a riff, or a chord progression, and just sit there and absorb, yourself into it. The first idea, we're just going to take a simple kind of bluesy bending lick, and all we're going to do is we're just going to change the last note. So I'm going to end the phrase on a different note, and I want you to notice how different the phrase sounds each time I change that final note. So this is revealing, the power of one note. So we're in A minor. And the phrase, I'm just going to basically use this bending sequence right here. I guess you can think of that as shape 4 of the minor pentatonic scale in A. So I'm just playing this. Okay, very basic and simple phrase. Now, we're basically starting on A, grabbing C, grabbing D, bending that up a whole step and back, going back to C, and then ending on A again. Right? Now listen to what it sounds like if we end on G sharp or A flat. Right? It totally changed the sound of that lick. Now let's listen to what G natural sounds like. Now listen to F sharp here. Now we're going to go to F natural, but I'm going to pick it or play it on the 15th fret on the D string instead of reaching all the way back to the 10th fret there on the G. And then we're going to finish there on E on the 14th fret on the D string. But the important thing there is you can hear how different that simple phrase sounds just ending on a different note. Or whatever, you can end that phrase however you want. But the important thing there is we're listening to how, different that phrase sounds, just choosing a different note to land on at the end. And that simple alteration could lead your song into a completely different area. Like maybe it would go to a different chord, or there would be a modulation or a key change or something. And that one note signals that, where it kind of opens that door for you to go somewhere else. Now let's take that idea, and instead of ending on a lower note, let's end on a higher note. So let's do the same phrase, but instead of ending on this low A, we're going to end on a higher A there on the 17th fret on the high E. Like that. Now let's do the same thing. Let's go back to G sharp. And then G natural. And then F sharp. And then F natural. And then end on E. Or however you want to end it. So the important thing there is now we've expanded, the original idea of ending on these lower notes. And we're really just kind of going down chromatically like that. But then we flipped it to the higher note, right? So it's a very simple phrase, and that lick could be anything. That could be a different lick that you've written, or it could be a lick you borrowed, from another guitarist. But we're creating variations. We're making mutations of that one phrase, right? So if we had this, you can think of that as one phrase or one lick, and then all the additional notes that we ended on are creating different phrases and licks. You could expand those ideas into different directions. Okay, now to help you kind of get started moving this in different directions, let's really just combine that octave that we kind of played with there. We went to a lower A, and then we ended up targeting a higher A. So now let's just turn that melodic idea into a phrase like this. And you can see there I started it the same way. But then instead of bending, I just reached up and grabbed that higher A octave on the 17th fret there on the high E. And then I went back up again. So I'm just making a little melodic statement out of it now. Now, if you don't want to reach down like that and stretch, you can of course relocate those over here. It just depends if you want to use string skipping or not. So the important thing here, I'm not really showing you these, phrases like, wow, check out these cool licks. I'm really just sharing a concept here. Those licks and phrases could be anything, It doesn't have to be in the key of A minor. It could be any key. It could be in a major tonality or a minor or diminished or something. But the important thing here is you're thinking about phrases. You're thinking about, what note am I beginning or ending this phrase on? What are the notes contained in here? How can I modify or change, some of the ideas or elements, in this lick? So this is really important for you to do because you might be working on a solo or part of a song or something. Or maybe you're just coming up with a melody. Like maybe you have the chord progression, but you don't really know what to do melodically as far as a vocal part or a guitar part or a little hook or a riff. And this type of thing is really good for you to do because you're gonna explore variations, explore different options, and you might have a song you've written, and then just by kind of, variating and kind of mutating some of the ideas, you might come up with a brand new section like, well, hey, this song didn't have a bridge, but now I'm hearing this different part it can go to, and now I've got a bridge, for my song. Or, it could just throw a curveball in your song somewhere, something unique or different that can occur. One more little bit of advice here I can add is, take licks from like famous songs, like some of your favorite guitarists. It could be anybody, it could be David Gilmour or someone like that. It could be a shred player like Satriani or somebody, or it could be, Mike Campbell who played with Tom Petty or anybody. But, learn a lick or a phrase from someone and then sit there and kind of apply this concept to it. Change the notes around, end on a different note, begin on a different note. If there's a bend, change the note you're bending. See what happens if you kind of play with it, because you never know. You might end up writing a brand new solo or a song, or you might have, one idea that turns into 10 new ideas or 100 or however many. So leave some feedback and some comments. Let me know, if you got anything from this lesson. And please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back with some more material and content very soon. Thank you.